I have wanted to fly at Fiesch since learning to paraglide for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, for the wonderful view into the Bernese Oberland up the Aletsch Glacier and of the Finsteraarhorn, and secondly, for the massive potential for big XC flights. Everything finally came together at the end of a long weekend in Chamonix, and we headed to launch at Riederalp. We quickly climbed up above launch, and I had a wonderful flight with Alex east through the Goms with a really outstanding view into the Bernese Oberland. It was great to be flying in these brilliant conditions, fast, with a friend, and we made great time to the eastern turnpoint. The route all the way back along the Rhone valley was mostly very fast, flying in a gaggle for much of the route. There was one shaded out section which was slower and split up the gaggle, but after some patience I was back up at cloudbase and making the final climb before heading to the western turnpoint above Martigny. From here there was a very long valley crossing which required an arc to be flown around the western end of the Sion airport airspace. It was fairly stressful flying as close as I dared to the airspace. It was definitely a relief when I arrived at a good height on the other side of the valley and then climbed up to cloudbase to establish myself onto the route into the Walliser Alpen. The clouds looked fantastic and the scenery was breathtaking. However, it was much more intimidating as it was windier, the mountains were big, and I was flying alone. The progress was mostly fast until a few areas where it was very shaded out, which combined with the stronger wind was certainly a bit challenging. I was glad to meet up with some other pilots for a slow climb up from a very intimidating remote valley before we crossed the valley which runs up to Zermatt. From here there was an easy climb up in front of the Rhone before crossing its enormous north face and heading towards the Horn above Sassgrund. Here the wind was really taking its toll and it took me a long time to escape the very windy area north of the Weissmies. However, after lots of scratching, I was back up above the summit of the Weissmies before making a wonderful glide along the north ridge and in front of the Horn. From here there were only a few more climbs before what should have been the final glide to an easy landing. However, unfortunately, I ended up spinning my glider at about 10 meters while already out of the harness and hitting the ground hard, which resulted in having 2 weeks in hospital. The accident was very avoidable for a number of reasons and lessons have definitely been learnt, but thankfully I will make a full recovery and looking forward to getting back in the mountains later this year.